specialists in this country.
While such complicated problems were being worked out in Russia, 4 Soviet manager trainees hired by the joint venture arrived in Canada to begin 9 months of intensive training. It was their first trip to the West, and they arrived exhausted and overwhelmed. They were shown where they would live. They were given something that's hard to come by in the Soviet Union, maps of the city. They got their first feel of hard currency. They were introduced to modern appliances like the dishwasher. And they went shopping at a Western grocery store.
You like cookies?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get some cookies then.
They were amazed at the quantity and variety of food, but the packaging was confusing.
You see all of your products wrapped in different paper packets. So what is this? I don't know what it is. Bread or biscuits or milk. It was very difficult.
But their first experience at McDonald's, behind the counter, was even more difficult. Vladimir Zurakovsky, Hamzat Hasbulatov, Mikhail Sheleznov, and Georgy Smolievsky had a hard time keeping up with the North American crew and the teachers, though their enthusiasm never failed.
For McDonald's, I have never walked so fast, only when I played soccer or tennis. It's like sport.
With only 2 weeks of training behind them, they couldn't be expected to get everything right.
Okay, that's a little too much, George. Yes. Good.
It was hard because we went through cultural shock coming to a different country. And also, before we came, we were working in Moscow offices at jobs that were not physical. Having to work 8 hours on our feet with young kids was very hard. And I remember when I got home at about 8, I was feeling dead.
Back in Russia, Hans Vandenhoek was ready to begin planting the imported seed potatoes when he ran into a major problem with the chief of the collective farm.
We wanted irrigated land, and he said, yes, you will get an irrigated land. One day before planting, the leading agronomist, the chief agronomist of that sovkhoz said, irrigated land? No irrigated land for you. We said, yes, definitely. It's an agreement between the chairman and McDonald's. And he said, no. All fields under irrigation are planted already with other crops, and we have no irrigated land available. We couldn't solve the problem. It was too late in the season. We had to use that field, so we simply planted non-irrigated.
Without irrigation, they were forced to depend on the Russian summer, and suddenly their ability to produce enough potatoes was seriously in question. In North America, the 4 Russian managers were now well into more than 1,000 hours of training at Hamburger University. Training that stressed McDonald's style of employee management and the importance of friendly customer service. They even tested their new knowledge at the Sky Dome in Toronto, home of the busiest McDonald's in the world. Back home, construction on the restaurant was progressing. This McDonald's will have over 6,500 square feet of space. It will cost $4.5 million to build, and it will seat 700 people at a time. It will feature 2 complete kitchens, a service counter over 70 feet long, 27 cash registers, and a staff of 630 Russians. Only a few months remain before opening day. The question on everyone's mind is whether they will be ready to open on time. By now, Dick Manthe was making real progress on the complex. Over 300 construction workers from around the world were brought in to work on the project. When finished, it will provide jobs for 300 Russian workers, and it will be like nothing ever seen here before. But a number of other problems continued to crop up on the construction of the store.
Это даже мы не знаем, сколько может стоить, даже не представляем.
I can't even imagine how much it's going to cost.
Putting a new restaurant where one used to be was more difficult than the Russians had ever imagined.
Well, the problem's really unique. You know, there'd been a restaurant there for years and years, and we said, well, we're putting in a different restaurant. We need more energy. And they said, well, no, just plug in your equipment. We said, we need 4 times the power. And we ended up having to trench through downtown Moscow for about 1 kilometer and build substations along the way. And so it'd be problems like that with power, with water, but eventually they all got resolved. But it was a lot of scrapping for a while.
In North America, graduation was near for the 4 Russian managers, and training had begun for 26 newly arrived assistant managers. Their exposure to the West would change their lives forever.
I don't want to sound too fancy, but you know what this joint venture is also doing is, in a way, very supportive of perestroika. It's changing people's lives over the course of months. They've learned a new language. They've learned about that big world out there. They've learned about other cultures. I think their value systems have changed. I think this is one of the greatest exercises in manpower development that I've ever seen.
At Hamburger University in Oak Brook, Illinois, the 4 manager trainees received their degrees in hamburgerology. They all made the dean's honor list, but Kamzat was top in his class and was later named head manager of the McDonald's in Pushkin Square. At a press conference just before their return home, they expressed their eagerness to meet the toughest challenge of all, taking what they had learned and making it work in the Soviet Union.
Good time, great taste at McDonald's.
As the newly trained managers arrived back in Moscow, it was time to begin hiring their Russian crew. McDonald's placed a one-time ad in a Moscow newspaper that read, "Wanted, workers for the new McDonald's restaurant, Pushkin Square." 630 jobs were available. Day after day, applications flooded in. In all, McDonald's received